Before we get started, I just want to say that Mapbox stuff is really cool. This is what a Minecraft map looks like, actually. It's kind of my wheelhouse, given the fact that I do some game server hosting. But just wanted to show it off for a second, for those that are interested. Who's heard of Docker here? Who's using Docker? Less. Who just wants to know the difference between a Docker container and a VM? There we go. So I'm John. You can find me online as BlazeDD, website and everything. I work at Nodecraft. We're a game server hosting company, hence the Dynmap Minecraft map earlier. So real quickly, what does a Node.js container need? You need, obviously, Node and NPM to get your dependencies, any kind of other application dependencies. So if you're using Python in the NPM module, or maybe using command line, whatever that might be, you'll usually know what that is. And last, you might want some kind of CI pipeline to automate those builds. So for example, I took my website, let's see here, and it's just a basic Webpack plus some ESLint for testing, and it's just a static, Express server, nothing really fancy, but we're gonna make that a Docker container. And so you might, take the easy way out and just say, let's make a Docker run. So just writing Docker run, we're gonna make it interactive so we can actually respond to it. Now we're gonna have to volume mount our files. So how does the Docker container know what your files are, your application itself? So until you make an image, you're gonna have to mount those. So this is kind of the base layer getting your way in there. So my current directory being, this is used to Linux. There we go. So we're gonna mount our current directory where my website's actually pulled from Git to a fake directory on the container. We're just gonna call home website. And we're gonna tell it the work directory so it knows how to start, where that's at. That's home website. So that new directory will be in the container. Nothing else will be there, just a base operating system, so to speak. We're gonna tell it we want to run on port 80, so it's a website. No TLS or HTTPS, just basic. We're gonna run node 6, and we're gonna say we wanna run npm start. Live demo, cool, it is online. And if I go 3 fingers, come on, to localhost, we have nothing, cool. Live demos. Let's try a different port. So we're gonna map port 80 to port 8000. Let's try that. Great, live demos. Well, that didn't work. So, let's see here. So if I had got my ports right, you would have seen that there is a container running, its ports are exposed. I can see that container by doing a Docker PS, just a node image running. And this is fine until you want to move to another machine because it's running on my laptop, but if we want to run on a server or your laptop, we've got to make that a Docker image, which is more or less a portable snapshot of those files and different layers of those files. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and stop that container by its ID. And it's stopped. So what we need is a Docker file, and rather than type it out, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've already done beforehand, given the fact we have about 6 minutes left. So I've got a branch here, and the only difference really is, if you look at our commits, is that we have a Docker ignore file, just like a git ignore file, or perhaps a npm ignore file. Just kind of want to get rid of any contents that Docker won't need to run. So like your Webpack configs, anything that you've already done, make it bigger. There we go. Is that a little better? Sorry about that. But it's a basic config file just to get rid of anything you don't need because you're trying to trim down some of that file size. Next, we have a Docker file, which let's actually go look at that, which actually defines what's in your application itself. So it's a weird syntax you've never seen before, which basically just defines what you're doing. So you're going to say, I'm going to make a container from Node version 6. So to briefly, I'll come back to what Alpine means in a bit, so just ignore that for a second. We're going to copy our contents of our root directory. So in Git, that's just the main, all of my application files. Just copy everything. So next, you're going to tell it to run a few commands. And these commands are typically going to be part of your build process. And there's a set of different ways you can do this. You can use CI, you can use multi-stage Docker builds. But to keep it simple, we're going to just do it this way. We're just going to move to the directory, do npm install. We're going to run webpack. Because we don't want to install it globally, we can just run webpack directly from the node modules folder by just calling it directly. We're going to pipe progress. This is usually something you'd need for CI in case CI is like, hey, it timed out, I don't see any output, so this gets you output. And then we're going to prune, which is a way to get rid of all your dev dependencies. And so to give you some example, so if I look at my package.json file here, I've got only one dependency being expressed, but my dev dependencies being all of my Webpack files, because I'm going to build them out and then push those to the server. I don't need them anymore afterwards. I'm going to actually just make those dev dependencies. So let's go back. You can tell I'm used to using a Mac. So once you've got this done, you've got a layer here which actually acts as all of your production files. So anything Webpack did, you now have a file system layer which is separate from the actual application layer. So if you made any change in one or the other, you wouldn't have to rebuild everything. You'd just make changes to that one. This is something you would typically look for if you're using Docker more often. This is probably a higher level concept than a 10-minute talk would probably be good for. Just know that's why we're doing it. Next, we're going to do our test, just so if you have any kind of CI, it'll stop here and be like, hey, you know, your ESLint failed in my situation, or perhaps you have some unit tests. We're going to tell it to default expose for port 80. Maybe that'll fix my network problems. We're going to tell it what work directory, like we did in that command earlier. Important, we're going to tell it to use user nobody default. It'll do root, which can be really bad security-wise if you are running root and have any kind of command line operations or anything that would be a security detriment to your application. And then we're just going to tell it npm start. And that's really all you need. The considerations we made in here are really for file storage. So if I go over here, I ran some tests earlier today. I did want to make you wait for my slow 5-year-old MacBook to show you those. So if I just built it without doing any kind of performance any kind of pruning, it's almost 3/4 of a gig. That's huge for a tiny little HTML website. So if we'll do our prune like we saw here with the npm, we'll get rid of about 12 megabytes. It's not a ton, but it's something. But Alpine here is a way of saving more. So the difference is Node by itself will package a whole operating system that includes commands like copy, move, delete, all the things you don't really need your Node application doing, like the actual command itself. Alpine strips all that away and just gives you the things you need, so just Node, just npm. And there's certain situations you may not even need that. But for this demonstration, we're just going to use this one. You can't see it because it's cropped off, but it's doing 54 megabytes. So if we use that Alpine like you see here, we'll bring that down to 142. So not tiny, but a fraction of that size it was before. So what's really nice is I'm going to go ahead and quickly merge this real quick. Oops, that's the wrong one. Cool. And because I've done some setup beforehand that I haven't showed you, by me pulling this request here, I can actually, and with some setup at Docker Hub, so hope I'm logged in. Great, I didn't do that. Basically what this is going to do is let you connect to your GitHub account, and you'll be able to directly import that whole container. It'll run the build for you, and you don't have to do anything. You see if it's sitting right here. And if I go to my build details, it hadn't hit yet, but here in just a minute, it's going to build for me. You'll see there's actually a way for us to have status of success or false. That's what the test was for. So that's pretty much it. This is a bit of a crash course. If you'd like to know more, I'm actually going to be hosting a Docker workshop come August 17th. Go to my website, blaze.d/workshop for more information, or come talk to me. But we're going to dive into much more than just this. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty and talk a little bit about the specifics of creating images, volumes, networks, and some of these topics I had to kind of just blow over today. Well, thank you so much, and that's just about it.